Nikola Jokic with an absolutely incredible, prolific, amazing 53-point game, but it's not enough as the Phoenix Suns tie the series 2-2. Plus, billionaires get to do what they want. We'll talk about that and a lot more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making this your first listen. We appreciate you guys being with us on all platforms, whether you're checking us out on Monday morning on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or if you're joining the live show on Sunday night after the Denver Nuggets lost in Game 4 to the Phoenix Suns. We appreciate you guys making this part of your day. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. It's the best way for you to support the show. We also appreciate the 5-star reviews. They genuinely help us out, and it's great to promote the show and make sure that other people are getting to enjoy the great content that we hope you get here on Locked On Nuggets. It was an absolutely prolific.
Read this one. Read this one. It's too good.
Michelle Pollock says, Matt, I don't think I'll ever forgive you for saying Jamal's ceiling being closer to Devin Booker's floor and then it actually being true.
Whoops. Mainly because it appears Devin Booker's floor is prime Michael Jordan.
Yes, prime Michael Jordan. I do want to note that today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. It's PrizePicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. On today's show, we will obviously talk about the Nuggets Game 4 loss to the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix. I'm here in my last night here in the lovely Spring Hill Suites next to the campuses. There's like a bunch of campuses that have stuff here in Phoenix. I've really enjoyed my time in Phoenix. Everyone's been very nice, actually. We'll talk about in segment 3. We will get to the Matt Ishbia nonsense, and we'll talk about all of that. And apparently I need to clarify some things because there's like some confusion over what my position is on the subject. So we'll get to that in segment 3. Just you wait. But we want to talk about this amazing basketball game because, Adam, while I have, as somebody that covers the Nuggets, a high level of exasperation with how I feel that they played tonight, it was an absolutely incredible all-time game. It was a magnificent playoff game. Like, these are the moments that you will remember. Like, people will remember this game that night that, you know, Booker and Jokic honestly went head to head. Devin Booker with another absolutely mind-breaking performance. I really don't know. Like, I don't know what to do with these performances. Like, I'd love to be able to provide some context. It's why I've been a little bit like when people are like, the Nuggets are just not doing a good enough job. And I'm like, man, I don't know what you can do other than trying to throw the Marines at him. Like, unless they're going to literally throw pickaxes at his head, I don't know how to slow him down because in this game, Devin Booker goes 14 of 18 from the field after going.
And they were all hard. He didn't have any easy ones. Yeah. They were hard shots.
No easy ones. Yep. 3 of 4 from 3. He did have 12 assists as well, 6 boards and 36 points. By the way, he was a -1, all that, and they were outscored because Nikola Jokic goes for 53 points, which seems like a lot on 20 of 30 shooting, 11 of 13 from the stripe, 2 of 4 from 3, 11 assists for Jokic, which he made sure to note in the postgame, 4 rebounds, 53 points, 6 turnovers, and a +2 in the box score. I will just like open this up. What did you love about this game?
Well, this was an all-time game. I mean, it's overshadowed, or I feel at least online it's appearing overshadowed by the incident that we'll get to in segment 3. But this was an all-time performance from guys. Like, there's interesting scheme things to talk about, a lot. There's interesting adjustment things both happening and need to happen next that I think are interesting. But at the end of the day, this game came down to 2 players, really 3 players, making insane shots. And then you want to add in Landry Shamet, role player, and Jamal Murray hit some big shots late as well. But Devin Booker, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, the shot making from all of them in this game was unbelievable. I honestly don't remember the last playoff game that reached the heights of this one with not 1 but 2 players. And then I'll sprinkle Kevin Durant in there, who had his own like insane shot making sporadically as well. Like, Kevin Durant, regular game, like if that would have been a great number 1 performance in a game most of the time, and it was a distant third behind Booker and Jokic. So to me, it's one of those games where I feel it reminds me of all the games we've covered, Matt. it reminds me the most of the 4 overtime game against the Portland Trailblazers, where I was like, wow, I just witnessed something that's like super, super rare. That's how I felt about this one.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was just really a really great performance. Booker is on a level that very few players ever get to. The shots that Booker is shooting, for the most part, are shots you want him to take. Like, that's the reality. I know that there's a lot of frustration with like when I keep asking people this, like, what do you want them to do? And the answer is basically like, we'll stop him. And it's like, okay, like how? Because it's like KCP is just not doing anything. And it's like, guys, like KCP is an all-world defender who gives great effort on every single play. Like, they're trying, Jennifer. Like, they're doing everything.
Why is it? I'm so curious about this, Matt. You predicted KCP would have no impact on him. Like, why is that? And is it matching how it's playing out?
Because I think that, to me, Booker doesn't have an identifiable. His weakness is when you put that double team on him, and they've done a really good job of moving him away from that. And he's done, like, a lot of this is also the process of a series, right? Where he's making great reads to the other side now. Like, he's started to recognize a lot of that. Like, I think you're going to be better at speaking to what the Nuggets need to do in terms of tactical adjustments, in terms of what they need to switch up, because they had a system that worked. They didn't want to get away from it because it was working in terms of like the overall, the net wins in game 1 and game 2. But not only has Booker maintained his efficiency, he's added making better and cleaner reads when he's skip passing to the reverse. And they've done a really good job additionally of making sure to empty out one side to give Booker space to operate so you can't crowd him, and having multiple options that are appropriately spaced on the other side. And so, like, I don't know what the changes really necessarily need to be, but KCP is a really good, like, he disrupts a lot of normal guys, and he can challenge dribbles and he can play physical, but Booker is just strong enough to be able to respond. He's just quick enough to beat you at the first step. He's got just a good enough handle. And these are not like low, like you have to have a high level in all these things. His handle is really tight. Like, you notice, like he's not losing the ball. He's dribbling to exactly where he wants to get to. He's getting to all of his spots.
Fundamentally sound, man. He's so fundamentally sound.
Yeah. And so, like, there's no real, like you can, if you send, people were like, well, you got to send the double earlier. If you send the double earlier, they're going to get a dunk. And if you send the double late, he's beating it. And so, like, I mean, because we agree that, like, I have a lot of issues with the Nuggets offensive process tonight from an eye test perspective, but the numbers basically tell me that I'm wrong. Like, Jokic had 53 on incredible efficiency rating. Yeah, the Nuggets had a 131 offensive rating. So what the hell am I complaining about? Right? Like, this game was lost by the bench. The game was lost by the bench, and it wasn't – the best way I can say this is the game was lost by the bench, and it wasn't won by the starters because of the defense, is the best way that I would kind of put it. Is like the Nuggets starters offense was more than good. And so part of this, though, is just like I personally am not like, you're making life too easy on Booker. I don't think that that's true. I think that life has been difficult on Booker. I think it doesn't bother him because he's on a level. He's just on a level that no one reaches.
And first of all, I'm not sure there's a solve for Booker. Denver, in the 2 games they've lost, could have won despite Booker going off, which is, number one, encouraging. Like, it's taken 2 of the best playoff performances, like in back-to-back games of all time, to beat the Nuggets by narrow margins. So that part is encouraging. It obviously cost Jokic a 50 game, which we're going to talk about. Somebody's saying, I can't believe you hadn't talked about it yet. We'll get to it. There's a lot to get to tonight, guys. The Nuggets lost. We got to talk about why first. So I think there's a level of that. But the thing is, the pickle that Devin Booker has the team in right now is that when they single cover him, he's scoring at a historic rate. And by the way, Matt, he's not even getting to the rim. This isn't even rim shots. You know it? No. It's not paint shots. He's getting pull-ups, because there'd be one thing if it was, there's no rim protection or what have you, but it's a mid-range, truly a mid-range assassin at the moment. But then, so if you double him, I do think that you said you might have the solution. I don't have the solution. I can only identify the problem. I'm only so smart. These coaches have way more intel. I put this on Twitter. They know a lot more than I do. But I can tell you that their strategy of trying to double team him, they have made small but meaningful tweaks to say this no longer bothers us at all. And maybe that's because Landry Shamet ran hotter than not, but they put a guy in the corner that they said, this is a shot we will live with him taking, and he's going to get wide open looks. And he got a bunch of them, and he hit all of them but one. And so maybe that's a little bit hot. But hey, guess what happened in game 3? TJ Warren was in that spot, and he made those shots as well on a smaller scale. So part of me looks at this and says, Denver, they stuck with a scheme clearly too long, but I also don't know what the answer is. Maybe they just feel there is no better option, and we got to come back to Denver, and maybe Landry Shamet goes 2 of 6 instead of 5 of 6, and that's good enough to win. Maybe that's the answer, but Phoenix at least knows exactly what they want to do in those moments, and that's always scary.
On the other side, we'll talk about Jokic's legendary game. We'll talk a little bit about some of my issues with the offensive process outside of Nikola and the challenges that the Denver Nuggets are being faced with in terms of how the Suns are playing them. We'll do that a little bit later on. We will get to all the nonsense with Matt Ishbia and the incident with Nikola Jokic. We'll do that at the end of the show. But first, I'm going to tell you about PrizePicks and the $1 million daily Superflex promotion. Every day of the NBA playoffs and the finals, one PrizePicks user will win a chance of becoming a millionaire. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern will be randomly selected each day, and whoever placed that entry will be giving a 6-pick flex with the following payouts. If you get 6 of them right, you win $1 million. 5, and it's $80,000. 4, and it's $16,000. Full details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. If you were to do this, let's see, 7,000 times you would have as much money as Matt Ishbia's net worth. You must opt in at this link to be eligible for the $1 million entry. Once you opt in, all you have to do is play the game like normal, and you could be the lucky winner. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us and joining us and making us part of your day. I don't know what to say about Nikola's performance. I think that KD's quotes about it are really great. You should go check those out. Kevin Durant talked about how he's like, I know there's no way that's going in. Straight line goes in right in, and there's a lot of respect right now between these two teams, which is good because it's getting chippier and more intense. But there's still a high level of respect between these two teams because they're both pretty awesome, and that's encouraging to see. For you, I want to give you the floor here to talk about Nikola's game and what you saw from him in his career high tonight.
And so the first part of this is that Phoenix is making certain choices. I don't think it's a coincidence that Michael Porter, KCP, and Aaron Gordon have all had bad games here sort of in a row. I think there's an emphasis on that and a little bit more of a willingness for Murray and Jokic to, have to attack just the two of them, which is interesting. Jokic in this one, after the game, I know they said Monty had a quote where he's like, I think we made things hard on Jokic. I think we made him hard. 53 points, and they still feel happy with how they did it. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. Jokic, to me, Jokic looks like a guy who understands what's needed for the team. And he did what he did his part of it to an 100th percentile. I mean, this to me was a guy doing a 100th percentile job. Very rare do you see a guy do a 100th percentile. Even defensively, is why I made a point about Booker is not scoring over or around Jokic. We've seen Jokic have bad interior presence before. That's not what's going on. Defensively, he even came up with some big plays, got some paws on the ball and this or that. And then on offense, like I said, just doing everything that is required. So to me, this is obviously an all-timer. And then lastly, it's funny that he's actually outscoring Booker in this series. That was the most shocking thing I've ever seen in my life, that he actually has more points in the series than Devin Booker does. But I will say, just from a quick scroll of the timeline, moral victory, I think people are seeing Jokic for the first time. I see a conversion of people that have been most skeptical of being like, wow, I didn't realize this is what it's like game after game after game after game. because if you just look at numbers, they're obviously impressive, but it makes you wonder. But when you watch a game, you go, oh, they're forcing him to be a scorer, historically great at it. Forcing him to be a passer, 17 assists from the center position. Forcing him to be a rebounder, rebound. Like everything, he just does it. And you only needed a handful of people to step up to be able to get this one done. And unfortunately, you came up a little short.
When Nikola scores 40 or more in a playoff game, they're 0-3. If you expand it to 39 points, it's 0-4. And Matt Brooks, who works for Nuggets.com, asked a question, and I followed up because that was a question I wanted to he has a version of the question I want to get to, and I followed up with Nikola after the game. Nikola, understandably, as you could probably imagine, not in the best of moods, especially after he was having to answer a lot of questions about the incident, which we'll get to in the last segment. But he was thoughtful, and he was kind tonight with his time. And one of the things that he talked about was he was like, well, I had 11 assists. He's like, so I don't feel like I'm not. He almost took it as like because it's the media and he's gotten a little bit more defensive. Sometimes he takes these questions as like, are you trying to say that I wasn't getting other guys involved when like,
no, but I'm going to be with him, Matt, because I think you're kind of implying here that
I'm not
forcing Jokic to score is the best way. And my thing is a lot of his great scoring performances come out of necessity, not necessarily scheme. Like, it's not lure Jokic, because I think that's what he's hearing. Not about selfish, but like, did you get lured into scoring 53 to 9?
I hear you. But that's not like how I feel.
Right. I'm telling you, I think it might be why he's defensive.
Yeah, I get that. My thought on this is like Nikola did what he needed to do. He could not have given more in this game. He gave everything in this game. I feel, and maybe I'm wrong because they had a 131, right? I feel they need to find ways to get the other guys involved because they were involved in games 1 and 2. And when they're one-dimensional, it like Harrison tweeted this, and I think he's right. It just comes down to the Nuggets have one all-time player, the Suns have 2. Like the Suns, like Jokic is outscoring Booker, which is insane. Booker's got KD next to him, right? So like,
and he's in the biggest heater of his life.
And I need to go back to this because somebody who's typically always upset in the comments is talking about how like MPJ is crying now. I want to be very clear on this. I asked MPJ the question about, do you guys need to do things to get everybody else involved? And he was like, the last time I talked about this, I got in trouble. So like, he's trying not to like do that.
Also, the last time he's talked about this, he was 1, right. 2, backed it up by having a phenomenal game the next game, including the game winner.
Yeah.
And 3, they came back in the series and won. Like, it's not like he said a thing and then they lost.
Totally agree. Like, my thing is not like very often I am still more critical of Mike. Like, I have a higher bar than I think most do. And I thought Mike was really great in the first quarter. I thought he was awesome and locked in and gave a lot of good minutes. I thought he had a lot of mistakes late. That pull-up 3 was a disaster. Like that pull-up 3 was an absolute disaster. I think that one of the reasons he's taking those shots is because he's trying to, I got to find a way to get going. And so I can't waste these opportunities when the ball actually does find me, which is when to me, it gets back to Jamal. And I will be completely honest, I did not like Jamal's process in this game. And like, again, we're talking about the offense and they had a 131 and Jamal shot 50% from the field. Like, right. I don't know why this bothered me, but I think to me, it's that if the Nuggets are going to win this series, it's not going to be Jokic willed them and carried them because they have 2 guys to his 1. If they win this series, it's because the Nuggets 1 through 5, 1 through 7, 1 through 8 are better collectively. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And this, like, the way that this is playing out, and especially because of how much Murray is spamming 2-man game, it's turning into our 2 guys versus their 2 guys. And then we'll see if some other guys can make a random 3 or 2. And that equation does not work out in Denver's favor, period, end dot. Jokic
and Murray are just not better than Booker and KD, as much as I wish they were. I still think Jokic's the best of the 4 of them, but combined, they're just not better. And I do think that this series is devolving a little bit into a 2-on-2 battle. And The second part of this, to your point, we ask how to stop Devin Booker. I've said this the whole time, the whole series, by the way. You have to wear him out. You have to. And I think what's going on right now is that they don't have to work very hard on defense, despite the fact that they're getting absolutely cooked. They're not helping. They're not in rotation. They're not doing all this stuff. They're kind of just watching Jokic score on him over and over again. And it's like, oh, that sucks. Let's go the other way. You have to wear him down. And then, too, yes, I hate it that it's true, but it's just true, I think, of most teams. Offensive process helps your defense. It just makes you feel better about being involved. And I think there's a level of you've got 3 guys that are not involved. You got 2 guys that are going off. And by the way, Murray, I thought, played the same way in the first and second half. In the second half, he just made his shots, but it doesn't change the process of it all, that it's still a little bit too much of that. So I'm with you. I'm frustrated with Murray because it's clear that he came out in this game thinking he needed to do everything he did in game 3, but more. And I just feel like that was the wrong mistake or the wrong move.
Yeah. Some other notes. Look, you're not going to hear any Jeff Green defense from me on this one. Got to go. He's got to go. Like, he's got to be out of the rotation. I don't know if the Malone will. I don't know that if he has the confidence to do it. My question for you is, would you rather see Vlatko, Zeke Naji, or Peyton Watson in game 5?
I mean, here's my honest opinion about this, Matt, and you're going to hate it. I don't have faith in any of them because I don't think the team has put themselves in position to have faith in any of them. And that's the thing about it. Number one, just to kind of summarize this, I've been doing the list for every single game. I'm actually very happy with how they've all turned out. I feel like you can go through each one and see some of the micro adjustments and how we got there. So if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend you checking them out on YouTube. Start with game 1 because I feel like there's a real layer to how these all go. But the Jock Landale piece of this is that the Suns getting trapped the way Denver was early on in the series, they needed to find a way to space the floor so that they can get the ball out of their hands in a way that created open shots. And they didn't do that early on, so they had to adjust. The first piece was putting Jock Landale in the game because he puts pressure on the baseline, mostly from offensive rebounding, because you can't just ignore him and run to the corners and everybody rotates a little bit late. He is a monster rebounder, and he understands his assignment. Rebound. Just be around the rim, get extra chance opportunities, and draw fouls from it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is they abandoned trying to play their defensive players, Okogie and Torrey Craig. They've basically punted on the idea that they can stop Denver or that it's meaningfully different if they have an extra defender on the court, and instead have tried all of their shooters. They've tried Damian Lee. They've tried Cam Payne. They've tried Shamet. They've tried TJ Warren. They tried Terrence Ross. That's an enormous amount of role players to go through, by the way, to try to find the right combination. They've gone through them and said, we're going to put shooters in the opposite corner, and when that double comes, we're going to try to drag the ball out as wide as you can. So if you see Devin Booker, he's kind of just inching his way as far away from the corner as he can to force that rotation to be the farthest that it needs to be. Jock Landale seals in the paint saying, if you leave me, I'm going to get a rebound or a drop-off, and Booker hit him on a couple of those drop-offs, and then they're making it as far. So what happened in that fourth quarter was, and I tip my hat to Devin Booker because this is so impressive of a player to be 14 of 18 and go into clutch time and say, I know what the game plan is, and it's not for me to keep shooting even though I haven't missed for 8 weeks. And instead, he sticks to the game plan. They know exactly where the ball's going, and Shamet is shooting practice shots, meaning he knows the ball's coming to him. He knows when the ball, how the ball, exactly how it's going to play out, and he's getting his open shots and knocking it down. And this is why I say I don't know that if you change – so the weakness of the second unit that Denver's going to, Jeff Green, Aaron Gordon, they can do so many things well, but they don't rebound well. That's their weakness. Jock Landale is exploiting that weakness in them right now. And the problem is Zeke Naji's not a great rebounder. That's his weakness as well. Vlatko Cancar, is he stronger than Jock Landale? No, he's also versatile. So now you're like, okay, DeAndre Jordan's a great defensive rebounder. Suns counter on the fly if you throw him out there. You talk about guys getting into the mid-range. Yeah. DeAndre Jordan can't do anything but play a deep drop on defense. They won't even have to game plan for it. They'll just go right to it. So what options do you have if you spent more of the year working on different things and having different – maybe you go to it. But to me, when was the last time I even saw Zeke Naji play a game? It's been so long. To throw him out there right now, I don't think would make a difference in a positive direction. And
like,
it's also
Terrence Ross
almost
was,
unfair.
I mean, Terrence Ross was gone. Like here's the thing: is like,
Yeah,
Monty threw out guys in the series that haven't played.
They
haven't been in the
very
rotation, and
Yeah.
like. I go back. I'm always going to remember this as Stotts going to Evan Turner and Myers Leonard, who he had completely abandoned. Like he had just been like, nope, they're out of the rotation. Then he was like, I'm out of options. I don't know. Like we don't have anything else to do. I'm going to try it. And like, I think that's really dangerous. And I understand as a coach why you would be like, it's not like, honestly, some of this is like, it's not fair. Like, I know that people hate this line of thinking, but honestly, I think if you're a coach, you're like, I don't want to put Peyton Watson in an environment that scars him.
Well, now it's like he could literally ruin the season for Denver. You go in game 5 and he doesn't play well. Your whole season is now in jeopardy because of those minutes.
Yes. Now,
but
you're right. Go ahead. I was just going to say, you're absolutely right that like it would have been better to have had, I guess, 10 to 12 guys prepped for the playoffs and to have gotten more guys, more minutes and more opportunities.
Well, there's one guy in particular. Oh, go ahead.
No, you hit it.
The guy in particular to me that I think, you asked who it would be. To me, it's Peyton Watson, which is sounds the craziest, but here's why I think it's not the craziest. Denver needs wings. I've been saying this all year. One of the damning things about not playing Christian Sooner, not playing Jack White, which I know sounds like a crazy thing, but Jack White is a wing at least. Who's a defensive player, and not playing Peyton Watson is you now get into a position where you're trying to play a lot of guards and a lot of forwards when neither of those are having an impact on their respective positions. The forwards are not rebounding, and the guards are not containing the scoring from the opposing team's guards. The biggest adjustment you can make is to say, forget our double teaming. We can't do it anymore. We just need somebody that can guard at a semi-acceptable level. And I think maybe that's Christian, although he hasn't necessarily been effective on Booker so far. But maybe it's Peyton Watson. It sucks because I'm with you. I would hate for him to lose confidence or to ruin the season on a rookie. But to me, it's the most likely. You can't keep doubling. They've solved that. You've got to play it straight up, and maybe Peyton can guard him.
Yep, I agree.
And then at least then you can switch everything. So then you can now the switching of the small ball lineup makes sense. Like, okay, now Jeff's back to slipping. Aaron Gordon's back to switching. We're fine.
I want to note this, and Hurricane's kind of right here. You adjust and you're wrong, and you didn't have confidence in what works. You adjust and you're wrong, and you were too slow. And you don't adjust and you're wrong, and you were too slow on the draw. Like he's right. Like, and this is why this stuff is not easy as much as people think it is. I will say that. Like,
go ahead. We're on a delay, so we're talking over each other a little bit. That's only because of the delay.
Go ahead and go on.
I can't even remember what I was going to say.
I think Jamal. I want to note this because Kane predictably is losing his mind in the comments as he always does about Jamal. Jamal's defense has been really bad. Like, I think his offensive process has been bad since like he hit shots in game 1, and then he thought that this was a Booker and KD versus him and Jokic, and the process has been bad. Defensively, it's also him. Like, the numbers are kind of bearing this out that like he's shooting really terribly when Devin Booker's on him, and Devin Booker's shooting really great when he's on him. And Landry Shamet's like actually like starting to, like, some of those rotations are on him. Like, some of those are his rotations. It's a hard rotation, but that's like partly on him. Like, the Suns as the series has gone on have made Jamal more and more of like a pressure point, which is like the numbers say that these things are fine, right? And that's what certain people that run certain very good podcasts are going to say is like, well, it was +5 and all these things, but like, they are struggling right now because they need to get. Now, I will say, like, they're going back home. Aaron played great in Denver and played terrible in these 2 games. Like, a lot of this is the role players for Phoenix played really well at home. The role players for Denver played really terribly on the road. And based off of how the Nuggets were all season, that's not surprising. I thought they would win this game. They had a chance to steal it. Like, this is a key part of it is like, there's a reason that a lot of people are still very confident in Denver. And the reason is because when Denver won game 1 and 2, it was dominant. When the Suns won 3 and 4, it was up in the air. Like, it was still like the Nuggets could still win this game. And that doesn't matter. It's 2-2. Like, it's a 3-game series. Like, you go home and you lay an egg in game 5 and that's it. Like, you're done. Yeah. That's it. You know, you're not winning 2 straight versus the Suns. They have gotten to where they want to get to. Go ahead.
I think that one, I think the Suns, I don't want to say have to, but are bolstered when they get to play ahead and possibly when they get to play at home. Because one of the things, first of all, you mentioned the adjustments, the damned if you do, damned if you don't, if it doesn't work out. The one thing I'll say is that I thought it was obvious after game 3 that the Suns had figured out how they want to attack Denver. And if Denver stuck with the game plan, part of me wonders I'm not sure if it's Malone being stubborn. We know he hates to change unless he's forced to. He likes to stick to, his bread and butter until sometimes I will say too late. But I thought it was obvious after game 3 that they knew what to do. And then this one, they just executed it to perfection in the clutch. But if they're behind, does Landry Shamet go 5 of 6? If those are, instead of those being points that put you up from 4 to 7, they put you from down 3 to tied. Maybe he doesn't make them. If this game is on the road, does he make them? Now, they're set shots, they're practice shots. So the question for Malone, and then lastly, is Malone did he not change the strategy from games 2, 3, and 4, even though the Suns were clearly starting to chip away and figure out and make adjustments and figure out how to attack it? It's a chance that he just didn't make an adjustment because he doesn't think there is one. And that might be it, is it's like, hey, we come back home. Is our best bet to try to have a lead in the clutch and then to try to dare Landry Shamet to make his threes on rotation in Denver? If you told me that, I would say, I hope you have a better plan. But if you don't, it's not the worst.
It's not the worst. Not the worst. On the other side, we'll get into the incident with Matt Ishbia and Nikola Jokic and the question of a suspension. We'll also, somebody wants us to comment on this, and it has to be commented. Let's talk about the officiating, which I thought was really bad early on and set the tone, which definitely impacted things. But I did think it evened out as the game went on. We'll get into all that and more on the other side when we return on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. Comment section, not feeling confident and even tonight, Adam. There's not a lot of we're going to be fine in the comment section, unsurprisingly.
It is kind of surprising because this was a game, again, that featured Devin Booker missed 4 shots tonight. I know Jokic went for 53. Actually, here's a fun question for you, Matt. Who's more likely to have a great game in game 5? Jokic, KD, Booker, Jamal?
Jokic.
Who's number 2? KD, and then you go KD, Booker, like those two next?
Booker.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting that you say Jokic first and foremost, because I think there is a feeling right now when you lose of, man, we have no answer for Booker. That guy is going off. But I think the Suns coaching staff, probably not fans, because when you win, you just feel great. But I imagine Suns coaching staff feels the exact same. What do we do about Jokic? Like, if we let him score, 53 is an insane amount of points for a playoffs.
Yeah. Before we do the Ishbia thing, I want to comment on the refs here. Vlad has mentioned this twice, so do you want to comment on it? He says, please watch the jump ball at the end of the game. So interesting.
It was a foul.
DeAndre Ayton fouled Nikola Jokic on the jump ball. No,
and he had it too, man. That's what sucks. That was such a big play. And the thing that bothers me about it is, I would guess 50% of the time in the fourth quarter, like on a play like that, a player fouls. That's, to me, it's like the number. You should have one referee whose job is to look at that, because I just feel like it's the most common thing that you see. And it wasn't a little one. Like, Jokic went up and then comes down. That was a bummer. But whatever, it's one. Jokic lost the ball right before that. He shouldn't have lost it.
So in the first quarter, I was pretty exasperated as a neutral observer. I was just like, this is a nasty, nasty officiating stretch. And as always,
unbalanced.
Yeah, it was unbalanced. If you were a perimeter player driving like Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, you got touch fouls and M1s on every single play. If you're Nikola Jokic going underneath, getting held, grabbed, and then cut under and then push from behind at the same time, no call. And this stuff has always frustrated me. It's always frustrated you. It's a pretty common complaint. But I will say that over the course of the next, I would say it lasted to the first 16 minutes. Over the next 20 minutes of play, maybe more than that, maybe probably 2 quarters worth, like the next 30 minutes of play, I think it evened out. I just think that most things like even out, and it got to be a pretty. I don't think the officials were necessarily like the Suns got a lead in the first, so it wound up mattering. But I don't necessarily think that you can look at this and be like, that's why. Like the Nuggets, I believe, wound up with a free throw advantage.
I think they were -6, which is like within the margin
-6.
there.
Yeah, -6 at the end after all the late game stuff, right? Yeah. So like there were calls that went against the Nuggets for sure in that stretch between the end of the mid second and the end of the game, but there were also, I think, calls that the Suns fans were in my mentions about, predictably. So like I don't necessarily know that, like I don't look at this one and go like Warriors Lakers is a whole, like that was a +20 free throw advantage, and like that one was pretty blatant. I don't feel like this one was that. I think that the Suns definitely got home cooking, and I didn't like the way this one was called with Tony Brothers and Ed Malloy. No surprise, but I don't necessarily think that it was as big a storyline as I thought it was going to be after those first 12 minutes.
My read on it is just that some games are called tight, some games are called loose, and I thought this one was called tight early on. I didn't think it favored one or the other. If a game is called tight, generally it favors the aggressive team, and usually it favors the dribble drive team, which is they're more of a dribble drive attack. Yoke obviously a little bit more of a set. So I don't know. I mean, I understand that you felt that way. I didn't necessarily feel that way in the game, that it was unbalanced. I just thought it was like really, really cheap, like really tight. Everything ticky-tack a little bit.
Well, I think that's part of my thing, though, is just like let's just not send the superstars to the line like constant. Like let's let them play basketball. It's okay. This is not January. It's this is not January. I don't need a January whistle when we're in late May.
I will say the Nuggets got Jokic on the move. It's something I've been calling for I think a couple games. They got him on the move more, and I think that Ayton is obviously struggling to guard Jokic right now, but he has no chance when Jokic catches on the move. I think Denver should continue to have him running into his attack because Ayton, I would guess half of his fouls came off of Jokic catching on the move.
Let's talk about the Ishbia thing. So Nikola Jokic. So Josh Okogie loses the ball out of bounds, trips over a cameraman, and lands. Ishbia and his associates are checking on Okogie, as they are wont to do. Nikola is trying to get up there to do what he always does, which is there's a 4-on-5 advantage. He wants to inbound the ball as quickly as possible. This is something Nikola has done a million times in his career, to great effect. He hits the playoffs. He wants to gain a 4-on-5 advantage. Ishbia has the ball. Nikola tries to grab it from him. Ishbia resists and then tosses the ball away. Nikola.
Jokic pulls it from his hands, and as the ball dislodges, Ishbia hits the ball out of Jokic's hands.
Another gentleman put his hands on.
Hold on, no, Ishbia did first. Ishbia actually put his hand on.
I didn't know if it was Ishbia or the associate.
The other guy did, but Ishbia puts his hand on Jokic almost at the exact moment that Jokic does this thing. So it's like almost bang bang. There's a photo of Ishbia with his hand on Jokic's waist, firmly on it. Not like a graze, but firmly on it.
So to kind of carve through this, there is how I feel about the situation, and then there is what I think could happen with the situation, and they are two different things. And apparently, because I mentioned what could happen, it was interpreted as what I think should happen. So I need to clarify this. Nothing should come of this. This is stupid. This entire thing is stupid. Ishbia should have given them the ball. You are not in play, sir. It's your team. You have enough. You should just give them the ball. Don't grab the ball. Don't hold the ball when somebody's trying to take it from you.
Yeah, the thing I hate is people being like, he was just worried about the safety of the people. Get out of here, man. He knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah. This was not a...
Right.
I also don't care. I want to make it clear real quick before we get into it. If nothing comes of this, I don't care. It's annoying that Jokic got a tech. Thank God they didn't lose by 1. I don't think it ended in the long run. I don't think it was consequential. If nothing comes from it, I don't care.
Yep. So
if something comes of it, if this affects this, we're on a delay, so it's weird, man. If this affects the outcome of the series because Jokic gets suspended, it would be one of the worst things that happened to an NBA, to an NBA game or series that I can remember. Right up there with ironically, the Suns getting suspended for an absolutely ridiculous technicality that affected a series. And by the way, not just a series, a player's legacy, a Hall of Fame player's legacy. So to me, nothing happens of it, whatever. It's fun to talk about. It's almost funny in a way once you get past it. And I want to keep going on it. But if something happens, then it's like, you got to be kidding me.
The NBA has set a precedent that would not surprise me if they suspended him. That doesn't mean that I think that they should. They shouldn't. This is ridiculous. No one was hurt. No one was injured.
Nobody was even almost hurt.
This didn't happen in the stands. This was in the first row. The NBA defines in the stands as past the first row. This was on a sideline. This was on a sideline during an out-of-bounds situation. It was an unfortunate, weird incident. We can move on. Matt Ishbia, as a new member of the ownership group, as a new member of the board of governors, as a new member of the NBA community, needs to call the office and be like, we don't need to do it. Like, this is okay. Like, we don't need to do a thing but this. I think he's so competitive, he might take the opposite approach. But this doesn't need to be a thing. I was livid beyond words when they suspended Amare and Boris. Like, I wrote long, scathing emails to True Hoop about that entire sequence and how much of a absolute disgrace that decision was. This would be a similar thing. Do not decide, like, if you're like, this guy did, like, Draymond Green stomped on a dude, like physically jumped up and stomped on a dude. This did not happen here. The NBA is, understandably, after the malice at the palace, very, 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 very concerned anytime that there's contact between a player and a fan. Nikola, after the game, pretty honestly and pretty reasonably, felt, he was like, I'm supposed to be protected as a player. They're supposed to protect us. If you are a player and you are in the heat of the moment and there are people grabbing you or pushing you or whatever, players get defensive and whatever. Like, they are so amped up. They are not in a position, like, they don't know what's going on or why. There's all these people, especially if you're on the road, there's all these people and there's all this negative energy. Like, I'm sorry. Like, there's just no way for me to justify. I don't think that we need, like, Ishbia suspended. I don't think that, like, just let this go. It's fine. There was no fight. There was no altercation. It didn't continue. It was a blip, and we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's exactly how this plays out. I'm going to be terrified for the next 24 hours as we await sort of whatever is coming or whatever announcement the league makes. But the thing to me I've seen is some, like, I mean, it was Mark Spears. I hate to say it was Mark Spears. Yeah. Before used to be here, who was saying, what kind of precedent would it set if you don't suspend Jokic? You can't just hit fans. We can't set a precedent. After the game, Devin Booker was asked about the incident and said, he did his job. We got a point. It makes me think the real precedent here is that the job? Is that the job of the owner? Is that the job of the people sitting courtside? Can you instigate a player to get a tech? Is that the job? Because to me, that is the precedent that is at stake here. So again, I'm not here because I don't care. I don't find Ishbia. Ishbia has been in the league for 3 hours and he's already made headlines a dozen times. Like, to me, he reminds me of Mark Cuban, honestly, in that the fact that we all know his name and know all this about it and that he seems to revel with being in the headline. I mean, another thing I talked about earlier, but his business rival is Dan Gilbert. Those two guys hate each other. They have a blood feud. Yeah. You never hear an owner say a bad word about another owner. Sarver was a guy that nobody loved. Nobody ever said anything publicly about him. It was all private. The fact that this guy has been an owner for 3 hours and has already gone on the most popular sports podcast in the world and shit on his rival, another fellow owner, is so unprecedented that I don't think people quite understand how weird it is for an owner to do that. But the fact that then he follows that up by becoming the main character in a game that featured a 53-point per game score or 53-point score and 2 36-point game scores is insane to me. And so, again, I'm not out for blood with him. I don't care. I hope he just goes away. I hope he goes to the owner's box and just we don't have to talk about him ever again. But if there's a precedent to be set, it is the guy who clearly has main character syndrome instigating a player, openly instigating him. And then I use the language inciting a mob. It's a little on the DNVR show, a little incendiary. I don't want to be the guy that's like acting a fool here. But The fallout from Ishbia's like kerfuffle or whatever you want to say is that everyone sitting around him felt, hey, we can do this, to the point where a guy's like, yeah, Jokic, yeah, let's all shove him a little bit. To me, that's the precedent. That's the fallout of this incident.
JS Banger asked this question.
You might agree.
How much weight?
I said all this because I wanted to hear what you thought about it, Matt.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would agree that there is a dangerous precedent to be started when you start letting the fans feel like they can interfere in the game. I think that's a dangerous precedent. I think a simple like reminder to the players, hey, if you're going to be near the sideline, don't make any physical contact with fans. Is like that's an important thing. Like the malice is not so far removed from my memory that it's not a significant incident to consider. This is a long way from that, but I understand like in the NBA's view, it's like we don't want to go anywhere near the vicinity of the parking lot around the corner from that, right? But I do agree with you that the idea that like fans have a right to interfere in the game, like that's that's dangerous. Like that's really dangerous. You can't like, especially with how the players have been so defensive about what fans have said to them. Like how many incidents have we had of fans getting kicked out in the last 2 years, right? Like this is an important thing. Is like the NBA has done this entire like conduct policy thing. That was a huge rollout, and now we have an owner getting into it in a physical altercation with a player, which like Nikola did make contact with him. I'm not going to sit here and deny that, but Nikola's thing was he was trying to make a play. Nikola was trying to get the ball.
By the way, we watch Jokic every game. This is not like he's never done this before. He's the best in the NBA at, guys out of the play because he fell down or whatever. Quick, get the ball in, touchdown pass the other way. How many times have you seen Jokic do that exact thing and pull it off?
Hundreds.
100? Yeah, exactly. So I know a lot of people will say, what was he doing? We've seen it.
JS Banger says, how much weight does the post-game statement from Brothers have where he said the technical was enough? The problem I have is that I actually took a negative away from that because Brothers said, well, he deliberately pushed the fan. If that's the view that the NBA takes, if they consider Brothers, like they'll review the tape on its own, but if they're like in a vacuum, a player in the NBA pushed a fan, right? That's at least going to warrant the discussion of a suspension.
I will credit Jokic though, because I thought the language he used afterwards was so perfect, saying, I thought we were talking about protecting the players. I thought every time there's an incident with a player and a fan, the NBA is we will protect our guys. Jokic was physically touched by this owner, by the way, and the ball batted out of his hands. If he says, I thought that was it, if that's not it, let's not pretend that we're trying to protect the players. I think it was a good line for him.
Okay. We will record again Tuesday morning before game 2.
If the suspension comes out, there might be an emergency, a need for an emergency.
Yeah, we'll do an emergency pod
if there's a suspension or something, like if it's something crazy.
It'll be Adam's last show as host of Locked On Nuggets, as he is going to be arrested for protesting. A lot of people are saying like if he gets suspended, they're going to be done with the NBA. It'd be pretty damaging.
The NBA doesn't care.
No, they do not. They do not.
It's Denver. It's not the Knicks.
Yeah, they are 2 wins away from Kevin Durant versus LeBron in a Western Conference Finals matchup. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you guys being with us. We'll be back on Tuesday to preview Game 5. We'll be back sooner depending on the suspension news. I will say I don't think he's suspended. I think the league will act with better prudence here. I think
real quick prediction here, Matt. I think Jokic fine. I think Ishbia fine.
I think Jokic fined, Ishbia not fined.
Oh, that would stick in my craw. We better win the series. Denver better win the series if that's the outcome.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll be back on Tuesday before game 2. We'll talk our game 5. We'll talk more adjustments and whatever else is going on. Plus, we will talk about David Adelman being interviewed for a head coaching position. We didn't get to that today. We'll do that and more. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to follow Adam on Twitter at Adam_Mara. Check out the DNVR show on the daily for Nuggets content. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.